Well, you consider this. He had talent, and that artistic ability landed his work with special brief appearances on local newscasts back in the day. Well, those artistic strokes led him to a revitalized show on a local TV station, and he claimed a new persona. The hats he wore were ever-changing, and he's now known as Joe the Art Guy. Stay right here. There's an entire generation that remembers him as Bosun Joe, and his idea was to teach kids that drawing wasn't as daunting as they may have thought. Meanwhile, he practices his craft and gives painting instructions to an entirely different audience, all the while creating beautiful artwork in his home studio. And he does other things. He's got a lot of side hustles. Please welcome my dear longtime friend, the Art Guy, also known as Bosun Joe, Joe McGuire. How are you, my friend?
It is so exciting to be with you, Christine. We go way back.
We do.
Had a lot of fun over the years. You know, I did my college internship from ISU at WEEK in 1977, and it was a great experience for my whole career as far as meeting folks like Tom McIntyre and Tom Connor and the very famous and fabulous Christine Zach.
How about it, yeah. Well, so 1977, you were doing something called Cartoon Comment. Maybe people remember what that was. And Tom Connor would give you those ideas?
He would, and it was an editorial commentary that was in cartoon form, and I did several of them during my internship, and we just had a great time. There's so many wonderful projects that the station allowed me to do that was a great springboard to my career. And there was this female news anchor that even typed my resume letters.
How about it?
For when I was looking for a job. So just made great friends. It was a wonderful team, both behind the camera and in front of the camera. And it just was a great springboard to my whole career.
Okay, so let me tell you. So this is your camera. Oh. Okay, all right, just so that you know. You can tell you were behind. Excuse me, it's the one with the red light. There we go. Okay, you're good. Okay, so you did Cartoon Comment, but you were also working at Brown's Sporting Goods at the time?
That was my first job out of college for 12 years. I worked for Brown's. I was the advertising director. I first started as a graphic designer. That was my major in college. And worked there 12 years. Some people might remember Brown's. Brown's, we grew the chain to about 20 stores all over the Midwest. And I handled all the advertising, the newspaper advertising, produced a lot of TV commercials at WEEK, still stayed close to the staff there. Even during that time, I did some of the promotion as a freelance basis for this station. Worked with a gentleman you might remember, Jim Zerwick, back in the day, who we worked together on lots of projects. And that was actually my first job. When I was on the Captain Jing show, I was actually working at Brown's at the time.
Okay.
And Brown's was sold after about 12 years I was there. I think it was 1988. And I hooked up with this guy, a big, tall, redheaded, gangly guy named Dennis Upa, who was our station manager at the time. And he brought me aboard to WEEK, and I worked in the sales staff. I worked producing commercials and came up with sales ideas, things like that. We put together an event called Kids Nowadays Festival.
And it was so much fun. And it was, how many years did we do that? I can't remember.
I think it was 7 or 8 before I left to go to the Journal Star.
But we did it in Peoria and also in Bloomington Normal.
Right. And the idea for Kids Nowadays Festival came from a series that you did, a weekly series that was extremely popular, where you took the trials and tribulations of raising a family and raising kids. And that was kind of the theme for our show. Your series is called Kids Nowadays, and we call it Kids Nowadays Festival, just to kind of build on that. And you were our official face and MC and helped with the show a lot. And it was really successful. The first time that we opened the doors, there was 20,000 people that showed up. It was just, we never knew what would happen. A lot of my crazy sales ideas, we never really knew what would happen, but that one was it was a major success.
It was a huge success and so much fun. My legs ached, you know, for 2 weekends in a row. But that's okay. Sure. But you did so much work to put that together, and it was fun to have community involved like that too.
Oh, it was great. But before that, and a lot of people don't know, when I first went into the professional world after I graduated from ISU in 1977. the station decided to bring back a very popular kids show that aired mostly through the 60s called The Captain Jinks Show. And we decided, I'm not sure exactly who came up with the idea, but we decided that we needed a ship artist. And I came on the show every Wednesday and showed kids how to draw. I would show a piece of the artwork that I would pre-prepare, and I would show the basic shapes, and kids drew along with me. And we did several pieces of art.
Well, that's not it. That's some of the shows that were on. But you did this one.
I did that
Okay.
one, sure. That was one that was kind of fun for me because it showed how you can create illusions with art. Kids loved that fact that kite was holding up one side of the hammock there. And the kids would follow along at home. People don't realize how amazingly popular the show was. I mean, some of the ratings rivaled some of the Super Bowl numbers of today. And it was fun. I would go on personal appearances once in a while with Jinx and Sam. And it was a fun 5 years of my life, and people still remember. I mean,
Your hair has changed a little bit.
Yeah,
You're
it used
now
to
the
be
young
nice
guy with the
brown.
old hair. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But it's just amazing to me, the power of television, right? I mean, people remember things for many years that sometimes you think you forget about yourself. I mean, you know that really well. And once you're on TV, you're in somebody's home, and people remember that. And the Jinx Show was a great, fun time of my life. We showed cartoons, we played skits. The second day, on Thursday, I would play a game called the Bosun Joe game.
Okay.
And it was a drawing guessing game that I still do to this day. My classes that I teach at Washington Park District, my kids' drawing classes, that's something they look forward to at the end of every session, is
How
that
do you
we
play?
actually play it.
Well, how do you play?
I split the class up in two teams. It's always the turtles or the frogs. And I invite two kids, one from each team, to come up. And I start drawing, and the first one to guess wins a point for their team. And they really get into it. It's the same way that we did it on the show. You know, we had a studio audience that came in.
Yes.
When we would record the show, and I would split the studio audience up the same way, and kids from the studio audience would come up and draw. And even some of my I teach some classes to senior groups at supportive care living places, and we still play the Bosun Joe game, and those people remember when that was on
And you
the
just
air.
made that up. That's just something that came in your head and said, well, this ought to be a good idea, interaction.
You know, some people compared it to other popular drawing shows that came along, but I will say that I did it before any of those shows came on. In fact, I used to play the Bosun Joe game before it was called that with my brothers and sisters when we were little. So it's been something that was always there.
You weren't Bosun Joe to them, though.
Not yet. That came. I think it was Stan Lonergan, who played the captain, who came up with the name.
Okay.
Bosun Joe.
But, okay, so, and maybe you said this and I'm just spacing out a little bit, but you came up with the idea to be on the show, or they thought?
I don't remember exactly how it came together. I think maybe I initiated that it would be fun to show a drawing segment, and some of the other background people, the people behind the show, said, yeah, well, let's see if we can put that together. And I remember doing a test run where I set up how I envisioned how this would come together, and he said, okay, let's give it a shot. And it worked out really well. But I used to watch Captain Jinks Show when I was little, when it was on in the 60s.
Right.
I remember I sent a drawing of the SS Albatross to the show.
And did they show it?
They had it on, they showed it, it was pinned to the set, and I was the hero of Edwards School in Bloomington forever, because my drawing when I was 10 or 11 was on the Captain Jinks Show, and who knew what was coming, right?
I know, well, you know, sometimes it's that serendipity.
It's just, it's wild, but it was a fun ride. You know, I sometimes my wife Kathy thought it was a little bit of a pain, because you go out, you go to a restaurant or mall, and kids
And
come
as
up.
food's dripping down your face,
Yeah,
they're
we're
talking
trying
to
to eat, but I asked for autographs. I signed autographs and things, and it was a great time. And the show was great. It was at a time when local TV, you know, had a very special place where you had programs like that.
Exactly. Well, yeah, real live programming. So they, Captain Jinks and Salty Sam, nothing was really scripted.
No.
And so how was that for you?
It was wild. It could be wild. No, they would, you know, Stan and George Basilian, who played Salty Sam, they would talk a little bit, but so much of it was right off the cuff, and they just had fun. They really cared about the kids, you know, it was a very sincere thing. But yeah, there was lots of cartoons, and there was some other things that were put in later. A lot of people ask, well, we should bring back all the reruns and show that show again. And the sad part is that there's not really, because the show was taped in the segments that were done in studio, there's not really total complete shows, because the cartoons and things, they had royalties and licensing.
Right.
And those were actually put in after we did the in-studio segments. So, and then what we did is, even on the in-studio segments, a lot of times we taped over the past week. So there isn't a lot of footage from the show. There's probably maybe 2 or 3 complete shows, but I get asked that all the time. Let's bring back the reruns. Let's show the Jack Captain Jing show. But there isn't that much that's available. The station.
Go ahead.
The station compiled a nice DVD that I'm sure that's still available of some of the segments and things, but that's really all that there was.
Yeah. Well, those big old reel-to-reel, that was big business back then. So after that, after you were doing sales and a lot of promotion for Channel 25, and then you went to the Peoria Journal-Star from there.
Right. You know, what happened was this thing called the internet came along. And I was kind of one of the instigators, if maybe the prime instigator, that thought that WEEK TV should have a website. Right. And that's when no media outlets and businesses were just sort of starting to get involved. And I found a local internet provider, and we got on the internet, the first media website in the Peoria Bloomington area, which was called WEK.com. Right. And that really kind of took off. I'll always remember we were trying to figure out how to promote it, and we actually had an opening come up in the Super Bowl for a couple of promos that an advertiser dropped out or something, and we ran promos in the Super Bowl that year. I think it was 1995 for WEK.com, and the thing just exploded. From there. We were the first ones to sell advertising. We were the first ones to have local news on the air. And then you had I-25. Right, the jingle that. I've always been told that that whenever anybody plays bingo, you know, at the local bingo places or at the church or whatever, and the caller calls out I-25, everybody in the audience sings I-25. We had such great production people and folks that produce commercials and promos, and they came up with that, and it really took off as the media's first website. And I got a call from some friends at the Journal-Star saying, we'd like to get our site going. We need you, yeah. And I helped kind of bring pjstar.com into the world. I went over there, and that was my primary job as the internet director for the newspaper, and that took off. And so, but I did end up coming back to 25. Right. That's where I finished my career. Mark DeSantis and the folks there thought we needed to rebrand the website. That's when WHOI then joined WEK in the same building. Or, yeah. Exactly. And I put together the branding and the website for the new site that represented all the stations that were under the WEK umbrella at the time. And I worked for 3 years, and it was great to come back. Yeah. Well, now you can use your artistic ability. You said you're teaching classes in Washington and Fond du Lac and at some of the senior living facilities, homeschools. Right, exactly. I do parties. You know, I get calls for parties that folks, maybe their condo association or whatever, they want to have a party, and they get together some beverages. And I go in there and we do a painting, and they just have a great time. And you know, I got away from art for a while because I got into management at Browns and WEK. And I always forget Kathy, my wife, I think it was 1997, got me for Father's Day a Bob Ross class. Oh. You know, Bob Ross used to have his disciples, his folks, his teachers go out. And at the time, they made regular visits at that time to Jeffrey Allen's. And it was almost kind of like a joke, but I took the class and I really got reinvigorated in art. And I sort of forgot, and I really got into painting. And so it was about then that I really started doing a lot more art again on my own. And I did lots of paintings and things like that. And Bob Ross, he's my hero of all time. And I just think about all the people that he brought to art and to painting. And he got me going again. And so I really started painting oils and acrylics and watercolor.
What do you like best?
I probably like acrylic painting the best because it has that nice, rich feel, and actually, it's honestly, it's easier because it dries faster.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my earlier paintings were in oils, but a lot of times you'd have to paint, and then if you wanted to go over it, you had to wait a few days. And with acrylics, they dry a lot faster.
Mm-hmm.
Watercolor's cool because it's more spontaneous. I have several paintings that I brought that we can show the watercolors and show the acrylics and show the different styles that I do. But I like it all, and I teach it all. Don't teach as much oils because that's really hard because it has to dry.
They have to wait another week in order to add something to the painting. Yeah.
But that's kind of when I got back into it, and
Awesome.
I started painting and drawing some more. I kind of lost my way for many years, and it was during that time I started doing caricatures again.
Yeah, so tell me about that. Well, it's not exactly a caricature, but this is
a cartoon. Sure.
This is a cartoon that you did for Channel 25.
That was our Bosun Joe.
Yeah.
I used to like to draw things that were coming up, and that were themed. And that was when I would set that up on an easel, and then right next to it, I'd have different paper. I'd show the basic shapes and how it's put together. And kids, and a lot of times, sometimes adults would draw along as well.
They'd watch too. Oh, and you would get letters every week and some drawings from kids, and there were some pretty talented kids out there.
Very much so. And what we decided to do the last couple of years is we actually had a drawing contest where we invited kids. We separated in age groups, and we would pick them, and then there would be winners. And really excellent art. And I remember one year we had like 1,200 entries.
Wow.
From all over Central Illinois.
So
Kids
who
really got
judged?
into it. I got an independent group of 3 or 4 local artists that I knew, artists that I work with, and I let them judge and whittle it down. And it was a Think Spring drawing contest, and we did it for a couple of years, and it was amazingly popular.
Are you just like in awe of everything that you've been able to do because you have this artistic ability?
Well, God's been good to me. He gave me the impetus and the spirit to create and to draw, and if I remember, ever since I was a little kid, if I found a paper bag and a pencil, I would just love to doodle. I like to draw from Mad Magazine and things like that. Draw my brothers and sisters. We had a big family. My mom she was the one. She was a single parent. We didn't have a lot of money, and there was some struggles, but I could always find some way to draw, right? It's an inexpensive way to go, and I get my brothers and sisters involved. And ever since I was little, I took every art class I could. When I was in high school, I was a graphic design major at ISU, and just kept building, and then you look at your body of work over time, and you think, wow, there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
The Springboard, the internship that I did with you guys at WEK was really integral to me, and I just kept adding and doing things. I always thought that I was a very creative soul. I used to drive our sales department nuts. If I was in a meeting, I said, how about this idea? And they go, oh, no. But very often it turned out to be something that worked for the advertisers. It was something they could pitch the advertiser, and that was fun. The events were a big thing. I mean,
They were.
kids nowadays, we followed up with one called Mature Lifestyle Expo,
Right.
which was also very successful. And then that internet thing came along, and I embraced it. Some people, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know what this is going to be, but yeah.
Just like the car.
Exactly. I thought we should have a website, and that sprang to my career at the Journal Star, at pjstar.com. I was there for 13 years. I just had 3 jobs my whole career, and I spent about the same amount of time on all 3, the Browns, WEK, pjstar.com, and then back to WEK. And great people, media people are fun. there's a lot of energy. Wasn't it fun working at a TV station?
It wasn't and is. I
I
gotta
know,
say
exactly.
because
mean,
I'm
sure,
back.
still at WTVP.
Right.
Show's wonderful that you do.
Well, thank
the
you.
Interviews are fantastic.
Well, you know, everybody's got a story to tell, and I like human interest stories.
You do. You always have. I know.
Thank you, sir.
You always touch people in a very special way.
Oh, you are so sweet.
Well,
you are
it's-
so
it's
sweet.
true.
Just because I typed his resumes and his cover letters for him a couple of times, and in return I asked for a picture, a drawing of a lion with blue eyes,
Yeah.
and you blew me away with that one. So I still have it.
No, it's great. I've had a very full life full of work experiences and fun experiences, and I get a kick out of. It was probably about 15 years ago. I was drawing little kids at a birthday party, and
That's evolved into caricatures now.
exactly, and I was thinking, I was getting this nudge that you should really get back and do this. And at that time, Kathy and I worked together, and I was very fortunate. I was able to retire early. I was able to retire at 57, and I thought maybe this would work. And now, I have like 30 wedding receptions, and I do birthday parties, anniversary parties, corporate events. Every weekend, I'm going somewhere, and it's just great fun. It's a wonderful way to meet people.
Right.
And
And you have a studio in your basement.
I do,
So
exactly.
you don't have a whole lot of time to do stuff in your studio, though, because you're out doing all these other events and
Well, I do quite a bit of commission work. People will call me or email me, and they'll want something done of their parents for their anniversary or something like that, and I would knock that out for them. I probably get 20 or 30 a year of special commission work, and I like to do that too. 'Cause sometimes Kathy kind of laughs when people ask me how retirement's going, because I had no
Hasn't
idea.
happened yet.
I had no idea that I would be this busy, and it's been great.
it's worth it. It's worth it. So what does the near future hold? What's on your bucket list that you haven't done yet?
Well, one thing I would personally like to do is travel more, but as far as the art goes, I can't imagine anything more. I can't imagine. I'm so busy. I'm doing different things with the teaching and with the painting and with especially the caricatures that, hopefully I can keep doing this and, keep my brain together and keep working on it. And I'd be very happy to just continue some of the things that I do.
Do your kids have your same artistic abilities?
I don't know that they don't have it as much in the art area, but my daughter Tina, she was in music and band. I sort of consider that as the same kind of draw, the same
Right.
kind of creative.
It's right brain.
Yeah, exactly right. And she was in her high school band. She marched in the Big Red Marching Machine. I'm very proud of her. She's the announcer for the Big Red Marching Machine now.
Wow, aha.
And our son Steven was he's more of a technical guy. He's more of a computer and things like that. He's doing online education work for a group of community colleges. But if you want to consider the music and the direction that Tina gone, that's about it. And they not so much drawing and painting.
Yeah, but you did internet, so that's technical, and that's, I mean, that's where he's finding his success today, because it's everywhere.
Exactly, and it covers a lot of area. Designing websites, the graphic designers are doing very well with careers and doing that, and digital. And
But it's digital. It's not the same.
Yeah.
All right, so show me this big surprise
This
you have
big
here.
surprise?
Yeah. It's upside down. I haven't seen it yet. Oh, look it. That's awesome.
Well,
Thank you.
I wanted to do a special piece of art of somebody who has had a wonderful media career with both WEK, which is News 25. It uses the vintage logo, right?
Right.
And then your current program, which is very good and very popular. I wanted to give you this piece of art
Thank you.
that I knocked out of the fantastic Christine Zach Evans right there.
He's so funny. You know what? I'll do another resume for you anytime. Okay, well, how fun. We have cartoons here. We have a little bit of everything. We'll get some more pictures here shortly to show people your work. And you did a wonderful thing of the St. Jude Telethon for Steve Shaw.
Right, exactly. I helped, I worked on this telethon for several years, and Shaw and I we decide, you know, I said, do you want me to maybe to draw a kind of cyclorama, a whole shot of the set during the telethon, and I did that, and I kind of put it away. It was a few years ago. You know, Shaw just recently retired. He had this long, fabulous career.
He did, 45
He's
years.
a buddy of both of ours. Same place, same job.
Yeah.
And I wanted him to have that, and I gave that to him.
That's wonderful.
And he's done fantastic things for the station. Shaw and I worked a lot together. I spent a lot of production van time with him.
Yeah.
Traveling around.
Well, thank you for being here, Joe. It's so good to catch up with
wonderful. You bet.
And I hope everybody out here knows, I mean, they recognize your work, and we're going to keep you plenty busy after this.
You bet. JoeTheArtGuy.com if you ever want to see that.
JoeTheArtGuy.com. There we go. All right. Well, thanks so much for being with us today. Hope you learned a lot about Joe, Bosun Joe, Joe the Art Guy. Stay cool.